remember this Layton game?
レイトン教授最新作緊迫する人対人の駆け引きレイトン教授ロワイヤルモバゲーで検索
How about this one? Okay, you definitely remember this one.
ではゲーム画面をご覧ください。
Unless you are Japanese, very lucky, or both, you've probably never seen these games, don't know what they are, and have never played them. And if you've played that third one, you need to DM me immediately. So what were these games, where are they now, and what was with Levels 5 brief yet fervent obsession with mobile RPG games? Hello and welcome back to Things No One Cares About, and today I'll hopefully be answering just that. So for this video, you kind of have to put yourself back in the mindset of the early 2010s where mobile games kind of on like iPods or touchscreen phones were just really taking off. Farmville was everywhere, those types of games all over the place. In June of 2011, web service companies DENA and Mobage announced a game called Layton Royale, a spin-off game that was a crossover between the Layton franchise and Royale. If you're on this video, you're probably very familiar with the Layton franchise. If not, Professor Layton was a mystery/puzzle game that was very popular, I don't know, like 2007 through like, it's still popular now, but it had its heyday kind of around the 2010s in this period. And the franchise is best known for its 6 main canon games that started off with Professor Layton and the Curious Village. Royale was a popular mobile game in Japan that was a fighting game, kind of like rock, paper, scissors, except instead of rock, paper, scissors, it was macho, sexy, and intelligent. So kind of like an interesting gameplay format. Kaito means something like gentleman thief or perhaps phantom thief. Foreshadowing. And in the game, you're the leader of a group of thieves, although these thieves are sort of like good thieves. They're kind of like Robin Hood-esque. So the games were social games, meaning that you would play with other people and sort of build up this gang of thieves and go around thieving using this macho, sexy, intelligent, like rock, paper, scissors type gameplay. So that was the game. Royale ran on Mobage, which is a mobile game platform. So the game was available on Android and iOS, and both Mobage and Royale were super popular. So as of 2011, Mobage had 27 million users, and Royale's monthly sales were just over 1 billion yen or 12.5 million USD at the time. So Royale got so popular that they even made a spin-off live-action drama show about it.
あの怪盗ロワイヤルがついに実写化。今宵華麗なる怪盗たちがあなたの心を盗みに行く。俺に盗めないものはない。怪盗ロワイヤル10月ミッションスタート。
And while Royale was the main game of this Royale franchise, there were other variants with kind of different themes. So there was Gundam Royale that was made in partnership with Bandai, and then there was also Sengoku Royale, which featured 15th and 16th century shoguns. Layton Royale was basically a variant of this game, but instead of generic thieves, Gundam or Shogun, it was made with Layton characters. So here's a page from Professor Layton's history talking about this game. So in Professor Layton Royale, become one of the characters from the Professor Layton series and take on the role of inspector, civilian, or criminal. In this thrilling psychological battle royale, the game requires you to move around the board while predicting other players' movements. So this is what the game board looked like. Here are some shots of it, and here is one of the promotional posters. And I believe you could play as any of these characters on the poster, and depending on the character, you would be that role of inspector, civilian, or criminal. So after you choose your character, you would then move around this game board map of London, observing other players and interacting with them in order to achieve the goals of your role. So the detectives and citizens would work together to find criminals and defeat them, while the criminals have to avoid being caught. And while it is a Royale series and it works in some part with this sort of like rock, paper, scissors dynamic or mechanic, the gameplay is like a little bit hard to piece together based on what I've read and seen, but I'm pretty sure it uses that dynamic in some way, and it runs a little bit like Mafia or Among Us, because as you play as an inspector or civilian, you're supposed to keep out for crime, and as a criminal you're supposed to do a crime but like hide it, and then eventually you have the opportunity to vote somebody out. So the criminals also can like, they disguise themselves, because obviously if somebody's like Don Paulo, then you're like, okay, well, you're the criminal, but they're like in disguise, so you have to like somehow spot something, or I don't know, do something to know who's the criminal. The more you play, the more you can earn some in-game collectibles like character files and decorations and furniture that seem to be more in like a London lifestyle. And side note, I love London Life. I haven't really touched on this channel, but we will definitely come back to it. But London Life was like a mini game, or a game that was attached to another Layton game, but it's kind of in that like style. Layton Royale also supposedly had a brief explore mode that showcased a Layton short story, though unfortunately I don't know what that short story was about. So it seems like a really fun game, but where did it go? Well, following its launch in 2011, it seemed relatively successful for about 11 months when Mobage/Level 5 announced a new mobile RPG social game in September 2012. And this game, it has a couple translations, but I call it Phantom Thieves. They announced that game. In the same announcement, they also noted that Layton Royale would be shut down in November 2012, just a little over a year of being active. So here's that announcement. And I've translated it using Google Translate, so apologies for any bad translations. So Level 5 and DENA pleased to announce that they will jointly produce Professor Layton and the 7 Phantom Thieves of the Century, the second social game in the Professor Layton series for smartphones. They announced the pre-registration. In the game, the user will become a detective and confront the 7 Phantom Thieves, who suddenly appear in the city of London and steal all kinds of wealth. The purpose is to gather testimonies, make deductions, and arrest the Phantom Thieves in the city where the Phantom Thieves are hiding. And then at the very bottom, the first social game in the Professor Layton series, Professor Layton Royale, will be discontinued on Friday, November 30th. As a thank you to everyone who supported the work, we're preparing handover benefits according to the user status in Professor Layton Royale. So it seems like you would log in using your same Mobage login, and they had some like little extras or avatars or little collectibles that you could get if you had played Layton Royale. Layton and 7 Phantom Thieves, or just Phantom Thieves, was really similar to Layton Royale in a lot of ways. It was a social RPG mobile game, it was on Mobage, and interestingly enough, the title in Japanese was like really similar to Kaito Royale, because in Japanese it was called Layton 7 Kaito, and it was pronounced 7 like the American version of saying 7. And the game was freemium, so it was free to download, but you would have to pay to access more content. And as we start talking about Phantom Thieves and as we go through this video, you'll start to see that the games I'm talking about in this video are like extremely similar, and it makes it really confusing when you're trying to research. I had heard about all the games I'm going to talk about here, and I didn't even realize that they were all separate games. And you can see why, because they're super similar, and like the naming itself is like really similar. Like Layton Royale was related to Kaito Royale. And then for the spin-off game, or for like the next social game, they called it Layton 7 Kaito. And then we'll see what the next game I talk about is called, though you might already know. But anyways, back to Phantom Thieves. We're really lucky in that we know a fair bit more about Phantom Thieves. Thankfully, I was able to find like 2 blogs or 2 resources that show a lot about what the gameplay was like. So in terms of gameplay, it's got original artwork, music, etc. And when you start the game, you would create your custom avatar, design your room, and then you would travel around London, which again, like Layton Royale, looks like a game board. And you would ask questions and collect clues until you have what you need to deduce the culprit. Once you go to deduce the culprit, that stage of the game is sort of like a boss battle with like the little health bar and everything, and you can arrest the criminal, or if you lose, you get arrested, I think, which is like kind of weird, but that's the game. And when you win, also like Layton Royale, you would get some in-game collectibles like furniture, clothing, etc. So I think the social aspect of this game is that other users are moving around the board trying to catch the criminals, but I'm honestly like a little bit unsure what the social aspect of this game is. I think maybe people can like, you can team up and like defeat bosses together. I'm really not sure. The character designs for the thieves looked really cool and really Layton-esque though. And again, a note on this is, and on the pictures, is that, like I said, Phantom Thieves and Layton Royale get mixed up a lot, especially with the pictures. So the main way that I use to discern the pictures, because they would even be mixed up on some of like the articles or web pages that I read, you have to look at the trademark year. So if it's 2011, then it's Layton Royale. If it's 2012, then it's Phantom Thieves. So based on some Wayback Machine snapshots from the Google Play Store page for this game, this page was deactivated sometime between April 30th, 2013 and November 2013. So it seems like the game was deactivated sometime at that point. Now, the Lost Media Wiki says that the game was discontinued on October 28th, 2014, but I can't find where they got that date or what source says that, so I'm not really sure if it was discontinued, you know, in 2013 or 2014. If you know and you have any resources, let me know, please. But whether it was discontinued in 2013 or 2014, the game had kind of a short run, just like its predecessor, Layton Royale. So just to recap on the timeline here, we have Layton Royale launching in 2011, 7 Phantom Thieves being announced in September 2012, and then launching in November 2012, Layton Royale being shut down in November 2012. And then in August 2013, Level 5 announced another Layton RPG mobile game that was announced with another confusing title, Layton 7. So Layton 7 was announced in August 2013 during a Level 5 vision, and it was announced for the 3DS, for iOS, and for Android. In the announcement, they showed some of the gameplay footage, and we can see that the game looks visually pretty different from the previous 2 mobile games, as well as pretty different from Layton games in general. Unlike the previous 2 games, Layton 7 took a while in development. So we had the first announcement in 2013, and then we didn't really get to know much more about the game until a Level 5 vision in 2015. So from the Level 5 vision in 2015, we got to learn a lot more. We can see that the game got a pretty big aesthetic overhaul. We got to learn a little bit more about how the game was played. So as the player, you would be playing one character. You have some options, but each player plays one character, and you take part in a 7-person tabletop discussion, hence Layton 7. Not to be confused with 7 Phantom Thieves or Layton 7 Kaito. But the goal here is to find the vampire in the group and exile him, or if you're the vampire on the vampire side, your goal is to kill all the villagers. So again, this is very similar to Layton Royale, and it's like kind of like Among Us. So gameplay is also dependent on the role that you are assigned. So the roles all have special abilities. The roles are villager, which is just a regular villager. There are 3 of them per game. Then we have the fortune teller, who has the special ability of being able to pick 2 players and seeing if one of them is the vampire. We have the knight, who can protect villagers from being attacked by the vampire. We have the traitor, who is a villager on the side of the vampire, and then we have the vampire, who obviously attacks the villagers. The game has night and day phases, so during the night phase, the vampire gets a chance to kill, and the other players get a chance to use their special abilities. During the day phase, the players get to discuss who they think the vampire is, and there's some mechanic of keywords. So players get to use keywords, or I don't know if they choose from a bank, I'm not sure how it works. So they use those keywords to accuse somebody of being the vampire, and then the game would tell you how many people are correct, not who's correct, and then the keywords can be quoted so they can kind of figure out who's lying and who's not. So it seems to be like Among Us. You have some like built-in mechanic to figure out if people are lying, whereas in Among Us it's more just like normal conversation. Not really sure though. So in the demo, the player was the fortune teller. So at night he can pick 2 players and he'll get told if one of them is the vampire. And he then can tell other people, you know, what he's learned, but he has to convince them using the keywords because again, people don't get to know what role you are, so the vampire could pretend to be the fortune teller, anybody could pretend to be the fortune teller, so you kind of have to prove your case here. During the Level 5 vision in 2015, they didn't talk about this game as a 3DS game, they only talked about it as a mobile game, so it seems like they kind of quietly scrapped the plans for this game to go on the console. And then they also noted in this 2015 vision that the game would launch summer of 2015. But summer came and went with no launch. And then in the 2016 vision, they didn't even mention the game at all. Instead, they announced Layton's Mystery Journey. Ew! So, that was that. And then the latest development is that in 2015, the website page for this game was deactivated and the link was removed from the Level 5 website. So I think this game was a really weird choice all around because it seems like fun, although it seems a lot like Layton Royale, but it was never like Layton branded enough. Layton's not in the game, none of the characters are Layton characters, and in the first version of the game, they didn't even like look like Layton characters, so it was a little bit weird. And I think they realized this, and that's part of the overhaul that they did between the 2013 vision and the 2015 vision, but I just think it's really weird that they made the decision to not have the characters be Layton franchise character. Like the vampire could be Anton, the fortune teller could be Granny Riddleton, the knight could be Grosky or Chelmy or even Barton, and then the random villagers could be like fan favorite, and then they could do the same thing for the trader. So I just thought that was a little bit weird. All the characters have avatars as they do in Among Us, but like in Among Us they obviously all look the same and you can like customize yours, so like that doesn't give you any clues. But for instance, I'm not sure if like there was some mention of like the dog always revealing something. I don't know. I don't really understand how it works with like the character avatars. Like is you know, the old man character, is he always the same role every time, or are you the only person who sees your avatar and the other folks don't know? I don't know. I don't really get this game, to be honest. But regardless, Layton 7's cancellation was the final nail in the coffin for Layton's really bizarre mobile RPG fad. The other thing I wanted to note is that I'm talking about these 3 mobile games, but I have talked previously about a flip phone game, Deathly Mirror, Mansion of the Deathly Mirror. So Layton had already been in like the mobile game sphere for a little bit. And then also during this era in 2012 was when they came out with Mystery Room, which Mystery Room is still available. You can still play it, I'm pretty sure, on iOS and Android. So like that game was pretty successful. So it's kind of weird that they were like obsessed with this like mobile RPG style, even though it like failed multiple times. And like when they reinvented it, like these are all the same. Like Phantom Thieves is the one that's like the most different out of all of them because it has a different mechanic. Like it's not like Among Us, but I don't know. I just think this was like a really weird era, and I almost wonder if I wonder the extent to which Level 5 was involved in the production of the first 2 at least. Like I'm wondering if maybe Mobage wanted to produce these and just wanted to license Layton's like, you know, name and characters and whatever. I think for Layton 7 they were a lot more involved based on the visions and how much was included and how it was Akira Hino like doing the Level 5 vision for this game. But I don't know, it just seems really interesting. So where are the games now? Layton Royale is unfortunately pretty lost as of right now. There are a couple really brief gameplay clips out there, you know, floating around, but I don't think there's anything really substantial. As mentioned many times on my channel, I'm really not a tech expert, and I don't really know anything about that side of lost media. But based on what I've heard, it seems even if game files were found, they wouldn't be accessible, and it would be a case similar to Phantom Thieves. So with Phantom Thieves, as a community, we have a fair few copies of like the files for this game, but due to the social / like online nature of the game, they can't really be accessed because the server that hosted all the players is like no longer around. That game, it's like we have the files, and I think some people like maybe are working on accessing something from them, but like you can't, they're kind of unplayable and like unaccessible, I think. I'm not sure. Layton Royale probably pretty similar even if we found the files, but we don't have the files, so we're like 2 steps behind. Layton 7 is like kind of mega lost because the game never even came out. So all we really have in terms of gameplay is what was shown in the most recent Level 5 vision in 2015, and it's possible and I think pretty likely that the game changed a fair bit after that vision, so we'll never really know what the game was supposed to look like. As always, if you know anything about these games, if you have any resources or anything like that, please feel free to let me know in the comments. You can also DM me on Twitter, or, you know, consider adding any resources you have to the Layton wiki pages or the Lost Media wiki pages. I try to make it pretty clear in my videos, but I kind of see my videos more as like journalism or like aggregate research, in that I try to just gather what everybody else is able to find and put them all in one place so that more people can learn about them and gain familiarity, and maybe, you know, if it interests them, like help find the games, or maybe somebody has something out there. These kind of videos would be like really impossible to make if people weren't, you know, doing like the heavier digging or like the actual tech stuff of like finding these games, extracting the files, all that stuff. So I think it's really cool that the Layton community is so active. Shout out to everybody who does that. Specific shout out to Korn for helping source the imagery. One other thing I wanted to note with these videos is that in terms of how they fit in the canon timeline, with the exception of that short story that's mentioned in Layton Royale. These games aren't really canon, just by the nature of them. They're social and you know, they're like Among Us games, so they change all the time. So they don't really come at a specific point in the timeline. They're just kind of non-canon games, really. If I ever redo my long timeline video, I might mention them, but they don't give us any more insight into Layton's backstory or his life, except for that short story, which it really bugs me that I don't know anything about what that was about. Also, if you enjoyed this video, you know, give it a like, leave it a comment. If you like videos like this, consider subscribing. But thank you for watching this video. It means a lot, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. Bye.